be for.
Okay, we are in Acts chapter 14, according to my notes and your notes. So that means with this chapter, we're halfway through the book of Acts. 28 chapters in it. We've come halfway. And hopefully you've picked up some important things as we've gone. I find it personally kind of encouraging. I met with somebody this last week and he said, preacher, I need you to give me a verse. I need a verse. Okay. Said, well, I'll tell you what, there is one verse that has it's pretty well known, but as we've gone through the study of the book of Acts, it really has been sort of like the underscored, super highlighted, bold-faced print verse, which is Acts 4:12, that says, "There is no other name under heaven given to men by which we must be saved." And it seems like that is like the whole key to the book of Acts, just remembering that the gospel message is everything. Every time we turn around, somebody is preaching it, teaching it, defending it, regardless of who it is, Peter or Paul or Barnabas or somebody else. So I've been kind of encouraged by that, reminded that the message about God's grace really is like the single most important thing, and all the rest of the world kind of hangs on that. So
Which verse is it in 12?
Acts chapter 4, verse 12.
It's chapter 4. Oh, sorry.
So if you don't have that one highlighted and underlined or memorized, I'd encourage you to just go ahead and do that.
Yeah, you even drew it out for it.
All right, so Acts chapter 14, verse 1. At Iconium, Paul and Barnabas went as usual into the Jewish synagogue. There they spoke so effectively that a great number of Jews and Greeks believed. But the Jews who refused to believe stirred up the other Gentiles and poisoned their minds against the brothers. So Paul and Barnabas spent considerable time there, speaking boldly for the Lord, who confirmed the message of his grace by enabling them to perform signs and wonders. The people of the city were divided. Some sided with the Jews, others with the apostles. There was a plot afoot among both Gentiles and Jews, together with their leaders, to mistreat them and stone them. Well, they found out about it and fled to the Lycaonian cities of Lystra and Derbe, into the surrounding country, where they continued to preach the gospel. Does anything jump out at you immediately there? I'm not fishing for anything. I'm just curious if anything strikes you.
The Jews stirred up the Gentiles against them.
Is it common to have Greeks in the synagogue? Or did it just what they were saying just move out from the synagogue to the Greeks?
It could have been both. We've already seen in the book of Acts that there are Hellenist Jews, Greek Jews, that they're all about the Greek language, Greek culture, Greek dress, everything else, but they're actually ethnically Jewish. But it could be that some of them are proselytes. They have come to believe in the God of the Jews. And it could be that it just has spilled out of the building into the neighborhood and people are believing it as well. So a little of column A, a little of column B, maybe some column C. So
Here's something interesting, and it's happened before. They were ready to stone them, so they fled and preached the gospel in the place that they fled to. So by threatening them, they actually increased the spread of the gospel.
yeah, it's one of those delightful unintended consequences. And we've seen that too, when they tried to exterminate the church in Jerusalem, the believers went elsewhere, and so they took the gospel with them. So they kicked the mushroom and the spores went flying.
Yeah.
Or poofed the dandelion and the things went flying.
Just remember to blow in here.
All right, so I gave you last week. Not that one. This map. That probably, if you had it with you, you would find Iconium on there. It is strung up from the P in Pamphylia.
Yeah, Trish, last week.
I do.
This one, yeah.
I do. And I'll throw that one down there too. Woo! Iconium is a large city. It is the capital of the Lycaonian province.
You're welcome. Oh. Yeah, that's true.
It's capital of the region, and Paul and Barnabas go there from Antioch in Pisidia. Antioch is a popular name because it is the name of the emperor, and so everybody who wanted to get on the emperor's good sides would name their new town after Antiochus. So that's why there are so many. There's more than these two. There's one in Syria, there's one in Pisidia, and then there are more. And so, like we have seen many times before, when Paul and Barnabas get to a city, where do they go first? They go to the Jewish synagogue because those are their people. That's their background. That's their heritage. And it is out of that that the gospel message comes. And so we find them there preaching again. And also we find there again Jews who are opposing their message.
So, are there more Jews than whoever these other people are? Cyprus people and Gentiles?
As they are scattered all over the Mediterranean world. There are Jews every place. After,
But they don't dominate like down in Jerusalem.
no. There'd be significant populations of Jews in most of your major cities. But like in Damascus that we talked about a few weeks ago. And wherever there are Jews, there's going to be a synagogue because they have to have a place where they can worship together. Verse 3. God gives Paul and Barnabas special abilities. They'll have the ability to perform signs and wonders. God is giving these gifts to them specifically to show that they're speaking for the Lord and working on his behalf. In a different translation, which is a little closer to the word for word Greek, what we find out that it is actually the Lord who is doing the confirming and testifying about his own word. That it is through these signs that God says, yeah, I told them to say that. I made them do that. I mean, this is sort of along those lines, but a different translation just makes that a little bit more clear. That it's God gives the signs as his stamp of approval, and this, I did that. So Paul and Barnabas are the speakers, but the message is all God's, which is made evident with miraculous exclamation points. When they say something, everybody should believe it because God has sent it to them. And so what we read is that they preach and teach in that Iconian synagogue for a little while. And as with many things in life, and certainly in our world today, the reaction is divided. Some people are very excited about the gospel message. Others are absolutely opposed to it. And Luke tells us that those who are opposed to the message decide that they're going to mistreat or abuse or persecute Paul and Barnabas, and they are making plans to stone them as well. If they believe that Paul and Barnabas are speaking blasphemy, then that stoning would be the appropriate sentence for that. But Paul and Barnabas get wind of this plot before it occurs, and so they hightail it out of the city to go someplace else. They leave Iconium behind. Any comments or questions before we roll on?
What more specifically does the word signs mean?
The Greek word is semeion. It's the word that we have seen all the way through the life of Jesus, especially like in the book of John, where we looked at the signs that Jesus performed. It is, I know the other word for wonders means something miraculous or a portent, some sort of big doings that you can't explain in any other way other than supernatural. It's a sign of authority. It's a stamp of approval.
So the signs and wonders doesn't necessarily mean different things.
There might be some shades of meaning there, but it's kind of the same idea that they're doing things to show that they've come from God, and they are miraculous in content. Verse 8. In Lystra, there was a man who was lame. He had been that way from birth and had never walked. He listened to Paul as he was speaking, and Paul looked directly at him, saw that he had faith to be healed, and called out, "Stand upon your feet." At that, the man jumped up and began to walk. When the crowd saw what Paul had done, they shouted in the Iconian language, "The gods have come down to us in human form." Barnabas they called Zeus, and Paul they called Hermes, because he was the chief speaker. The priest of Zeus, whose temple was just outside the city, brought bulls and wreaths to the city gates because he and the crowd wanted to offer sacrifices to them. But when the apostles Barnabas and Paul heard of this, they tore their clothes and rushed out to the crowd, shouting, "Friends, why are you doing this? We're only human like you. We are bringing you good news, telling you to turn from these worthless things to the living God, who made the heavens and the earth and the sea and everything in them. In the past, he let all nations go their own way, yet he has not left himself without testimony. He has shown kindness by giving you rain from heaven and crops in their seasons. He provides you with plenty of food and fills your hearts with joy." Even with these words, they had difficulty keeping the crowd from sacrificing to them. Then some Jews came from Antioch and Iconium and won the crowd over. They stoned Paul and dragged him outside the city, thinking he was dead. But after the disciples had gathered around him, he got up and went back into the city. The next day, he and Barnabas left for Derbe. Okay, so we read in the last section that Paul and Barnabas have been given the ability to do signs and wonders by the Holy Spirit. Now, in the next town over, in Lystra, we see that those powers are put to use. A man who's been unable to walk since birth is healed by Paul. And I was thinking last night about this bit of chapter 14, and I think we really don't get how overwhelming that would be. I have some friends with a son who's been unable to walk or speak since birth. It's been nearly 22 years now. And if he was sitting by the gate and heard Paul, and Paul said, "Get up," and he jumped up out of his wheelchair and started walking around and talking and sharing everything that he'd been thinking for the last 20 years.
That's a neat that.
That would be an absolutely incredible
I have a grandson in that
Thing.
position, and that's it. The thinking, what they've been thinking for 20 years really brings a perspective to the healing.
We could get really personal and really emotional about all this, but we got folks right here in our own church that if Paul had the ability and they were standing right there, he would say, "You speak," and they'd speak for the first time. You'd understand what they were saying, and they would walk, they would run, they would jump, they would dance, they would hoot and holler, and it would be incredible.
Where can I find this, Paul?
Because our miracles of healing are so little, I mean. They're just, you're in the hospital and I don't know.
Test results come back clear when they shouldn't
Yes.
be, and X-rays show no mass where there used to be.
So,
Those are miraculous. But I mean, I just kind of got pretty overwhelmed by that thought. So
Gobsmacked is the.
how could anybody not believe that something divine had taken place to see somebody who's been on a pallet or in bed or in a wheelchair, unable to speak, unable whatever, that now all of a sudden they're running circles around and shouting hallelujah? I do not know how hard a heart has to be to not be affected by that.
so do you think God hardened the hearts of those Jews so that they wouldn't accept? I mean,
I don't think he probably had to work very hard at it. I think they're already fairly hard-hearted on their own.
so are we hard-hearted?
Well, some of you are, I'm not. I have a soft, squishy heart. I don't know about you.
That is true.
Hmm. It would be hard to imagine seeing a miracle like that occur right there in front of you, to know the history of the man who's been sitting at that gate every day, because that's all he can do is lay there and beg. And then you see him, dancing like river dance all over the steps of the city. The skeptic in us would probably say, "You mean he's been faking this whole time?
Really?
I knew I shouldn't have given him any money."
20 years?
Yeah, but he wouldn't have any muscle tone or anything, I mean. So, just because they would.
Are you sure?
I mean, to fake it.
Well, not on his own.
Instantly, he would, but if they've been watching him sit there all that.
Oh, I see what you're saying. They noticed the
They
wasting.
noticed that, and so how could they say, "Oh, he's been faking it all the time"? Because if you have been, you wouldn't have the wasting.
Yeah.
I just don't, you know how that picture, I can't do it, but some dancers can do it where they dance and they click their legs, and they,
Off to the side.
yes, that's what I picture when I read this scripture.
I would.
He gets up and
Why would you not? I'd probably try cartwheel. If they had cartwheels, maybe that'd make your toga fly up. Well, maybe you wouldn't do that, but
well, I'm so skeptical. I'm not sure I would get up. And they said, get up. Well, I'm gonna fall down. I don't know.
this miracle does have a great effect on the people there in Lystra. not all of them, but many of them. And they start calling Barnabas and Paul by the names of Greek gods. Now there is a legend that Zeus and Hermes, his mouthpiece, did make visits to towns and would try to find people who were generous and gracious and hospitable and try to reward them. So I mean, it's not completely out of the blue that these people go, well, it must be the gods, because there's this idea already that that kind of thing occurs. But Barnabas, who is probably either a little older or a little bigger, gets classified as Zeus. And Paul, who does most of the talking, gets classified as Hermes because he's the messenger. Um, they're ready to bring offerings, burnt sacrifices to Paul and Barnabas for this incredibly miraculous divine thing that has occurred. And Paul and Barnabas both say, whoa, 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 no, 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 no. This is not what you should do. We're people just like you. We're not gods. They weren't gods either, but we're definitely not gods. And then, but there is, however, a God who is real, who isn't like these fake ones that you claim that we are. The God who created everything, the God who provides rain and seasons for crops, the one who fills your hearts, I forget what the original language says, fills your hearts with food and joy. This God has been very kind. He's been very patient, mostly because he wants you to find the way. But this is the God who has made this happen. It's not Zeus, it's not Hermes, or any of the rest of the pantheon of Greek gods, because they're statues. But the God that we're talking to you about is the real deal. You really should know him. Uh, then I forget, I think I was on a college choir trip, and whatever church we visited in wherever it was, Pennsylvania or Ohio or Michigan or someplace like that. The Sunday school lesson was on this passage, and it stuck with me for a long time, at least 30 years, so a while. The enemies of the gospel have come up from the past two cities. They've come from Antioch. They've come from Iconium. They have trailed Paul and Barnabas to Lystra. And after, I don't know if maybe they take advantage of the fact that Paul and Barnabas rejected the sacrifices, if that's what they did, but they convinced the crowds that these men are worthy of death. So remember, in the last city, in Iconium, they wanted to stone him, but he got out of there. Here, they followed him so they can make sure that he gets killed. And this is a significant deal. Okay, so the crowds pick up stones. They throw the stones at Paul. They believe that he is dead, and they drag his body out of the city. What would that tend to make you believe about Paul?
He was not in
Did he smoke? And couldn't run away? Missing a point.
I think,
Some kind of divine.
well, either it could be one of a couple things. My belief is that these people who are not rookies at stoning people, that when they threw rocks at Paul, until he was dead. It's because he's dead, Jim. because he was dead. They grabbed a hold of his arms and his legs. They drug him out of the city. Dead. Lifeless. Not mostly dead. I believe all the way dead. You don't have to go there with me if you don't want to. But I think that many people can't be wrong about his status. They didn't want to just knock him out. They wanted him dead. And I've never seen the movie, but dead, dead, dead. They want him dead, his family dead, whatever movie that is. Outside the city, though, after the crowd goes back into the city walls, at some point, the disciples, whatever that group is, comes around Paul's body and boing, he's back. I believe Paul got resurrected. Now, if you want to believe that God threw some kind of special protection on him, that he only looked like he was dead, I'm good with that too. But for my money, Paul was all the way dead. God raised him back because the mission was not over yet. Okay, now here's the really psycho part of it. Where does Paul go? Back into the city where they just drug him out because they killed him.
You guys.
Well,
That is-
They see him, they'd either try it again or they
That is,
have the fence
yeah,
scared off.
that is super nervy. I mean, if they'd already tried to kill me once and probably succeeded, I don't know that I would immediately run back into the same place. I believe that's out of the frying pan into the fire. But that's exactly what Paul does. And one of the commentators made some note about that, like, all the people in the city who had seen him dead and now he's walking around. You got to assume that he probably looked rough.
Bruised and beaten and bloody.
Yeah, that maybe his clothes are torn and dirty. I mean, he's been hit with rocks. Maybe they're bloody. If he had any kind of wounds, maybe those have been healed miraculously. But the rest of him, his face, his hands, his hair, his clothes, they've all got to look like they've been run over by a truck. So
A truck full of rocks.
So why wouldn't they believe immediately? When they saw him?
I don't know.
Why would they?
Well, they saw the guy get up and walk, and didn't believe that.
Well, that's true.
Hey, isn't that the guy? Didn't we just kill that guy? He's getting coffee at the cart over there. What's he doing?
Is there anything meant by when they tore their garments?
Yes, that would be a show of extreme grief and sorrow and usually like repentance and remorse. I mean, it's a big deal if you're ripping your clothes because you didn't have a cold closet full. I mean, you're shredding the things that you wear. So often in the Bible, that is a sign of great sorrow. The tearing of your clothes usually goes along with throwing on of ashes and dust as well.
You do that? When did that
I
stop?
don't have a whole closet full.
Who has ashes? Yeah, oh, that's right.
I don't know if you feel like you need to start ripping your clothes every time you're sad, you're welcome to do that, but that's not an excuse to go back to Dillard's.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Steve.
Do you need an excuse to go back to yours?
Verse 21. They preached the gospel in that city and won a large number of disciples. Then they returned to Lystra, Iconium, and Antioch, strengthening the disciples and encouraging them to remain true to the faith we must go through many hardships to enter the kingdom of God. They said, Paul and Barnabas appointed elders for them in each church, and with prayer and fasting committed them to the Lord in whom they had put their trust. After going through Pisidia, they came to Pamphylia, and when they had preached the word in Perga, they went down to Attalia. So, one town over, they leave Lystra, where he was stoned. The next day they go to Derby, which is just, the neighboring town. In Derby, they teach and they preach, and there are a lot of people who become followers of Jesus. They preach the gospel. That's one word in Greek. It is, I'll give you the English version, evangelizo. They evangelized. The word you probably know this already because you're a very smart group, but so in English it's evangelize. In Greek it is you
I think he makes it up because we wouldn't know the difference. He's just using phonics, Greek phonics.
So this, there's two things here. So EU always means good or well. Can you think of any words that you know that begin with EU? Eulogy, which are good words.
European Union.
Huh. I'm not going with Europe. That's an outlier.
I was gonna say Europe.
There would be some other names like Eustace or Eunice. We're gonna read. We'll talk about Eunice in a minute. She shows up later on in the New Testament, but her name really means good victory. Nice is Nike, like Nike. Nike is the Greek goddess of victory, of battle. And so anyway, you've got this part of this word.
The black that didn't show up, are those letters I could duplicate if you read them to me?
EVANGELIZE.
The next one. That's
These
Yes.
sorry. Epsilon, upsilon, alpha, gamma, epsilon, lambda, iota, omega.
Yoda.
Iota. Not iota. Iota. So you know this part of the word, ANGEL. Angel. Which is, an angel is a messenger. So an angelion is a message. So this is really good message or news.
Gospel.
It's the verb. We're good newsing. Paul and Barnabas are good newsing, good messaging everywhere they go.
Euthanasia start with you.
Yes, it does, and that is euthanize is the Thanos. Thanatos is death. So Thanos is
a good death.
I
good death.
wonder if that's where Thanos comes from.
From.
Is it spelled the same? THANOS?
Sounds like something like big fat Greek wedding, every word had a root. Every word is Greek.
One orange. Okay, so they are evangelizing, they are spreading the good news, preaching the gospel, and the result is the result of evangelizing is always many disciples. There is no other name under heaven given to men by which we must be saved. Saving comes when the message is preached. A couple of other verses you can make a note if you'd like. In 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 18, speaking about the message of the cross is foolishness to those who are perishing, but to us who are being saved, it is the power of God.
What? First Corinthians
1 Corinthians 1:18.
1.
And then there are a couple verses from back in the book of Isaiah, chapter 55, verses 10 and 11. As the rain and the snow come down from heaven and do not return to it without watering the earth and making it bud and flourish, so that it yields seed for the sower and bread for the eater, so my word that goes out from my mouth will not, and so is my word that goes out from my mouth. It will not return to me empty, but will accomplish what I desire and achieve the purpose for which I sent it. God's word always has an impact. That's what he intends. It doesn't come back to him empty. It doesn't go back void. There's an impact. So they go to Derby, they preach, they make disciples, and then it's not very quick. In the next half of the sentence, then they returned to Lystra, Iconium, and Antioch. They go back the way they came. They had success in Derby. They went back to Lystra, where Paul was stoned, probably killed. Then they went to Iconium, where they wanted to kill Paul and Barnabas, before they got back to Pisidian Antioch, where they had been opposed.
By vacation.
Yeah. Yeah. So I have made a mental in my head a few minutes ago when somebody said something about going back to those cities, what kind of impact they must have had. Well, whether it was the first time or the second time, they're there to do more of the same thing. Whatever believers were in those cities, they were there. Luke says there are two main things that they're doing. They are strengthening the disciples and encouraging their faith. Strengthening the disciples. They believe, they have strong faith, but Paul wants to make sure that they are even stronger in their souls. It's one thing to kind of have some mental assent in your head, like, yeah, I believe that. It's another one to get sort of deeply, firmly entrenched in it, that it is an unshakable thing, and no matter what comes, you're going to believe it. The word there is psyche. He's strengthening their psyches, and that word is the seat of feelings, desires, affections, and aversions. Sometimes it's translated hearts, but very often it's translated soul. It is the place where all the magic happens. That's being strengthened, and he is encouraging their faith. And the message is that whatever may come, don't give up. Persevere in your faith. Now, well, the NIV says that the message that they kept repeating was hardship must be endured. And I don't know if I've ever really thought about the impact of that message. When you follow the track through these cities and everything that he has faced, and the preacher gets up and says, hardship must be endured, after he has faced opposition and threats and potentially death. I mean, that doesn't just fall on deaf ears. They know what he's been through. And so when he says, no matter what comes, baby, you just got to hang in there. It's the truth. Cling to the truth. Be strong. Stand firm. That probably hits a little bit harder than somebody who's coming from the Sunday school class with craft projects and treats. I mean, this is pretty serious stuff. They know what he has been through. And so the message is, no matter what comes to you as a follower of Jesus, be strong, be faithful to enter the kingdom. Later in Paul's ministry, he writes to the Corinthians in 2 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 23. It's kind of a long passage. If you want to try to find that, I'll give you a second to find 2 Corinthians 11, verse 23. But Paul there is talking to the people in Corinth, which is over in Greece, about what he has faced for the gospel. He says, I have worked much harder, been in prison more frequently, been flogged more severely, been exposed to death again and again. 5 times I received from the Jews the 40 lashes minus 1. 3 times I was beaten with rods. Once I was pelted with stones. 3 times I was shipwrecked. I spent a night and a day in the open sea. I have been constantly on the move. I have been in danger from rivers, in danger from bandits, in danger from my fellow Jews, in danger from Gentiles, in danger in the city, in danger in the country, in danger at sea, and in danger from false believers. I have labored and toiled and have often gone without sleep. I have known hunger and thirst and have often gone without food. I have been cold and naked. And besides everything else, I face daily the pressure of my concern for all the churches. A couple verses later, down in verse 32, he goes on, in Damascus, the governor under King Aretas had the city of Damascus guarded in order to arrest me, but I was lowered in a basket from a window in the wall and slipped through his hands. Paul's commitment to the gospel, his desire to see people accept the message of salvation, has prompted him to go through every kind of persecution and difficulty and hardship imaginable. And he didn't give up. And so we shouldn't either.
Mine.
I just, real quick mention, heard this on the radio Tuesday night as I was driving this morning, and they were talking about suffering for God's grace. And they said the most important thing was to endure. Isn't that kind of what you just said? That whole thing kind of comes down to that.
Yep.
So Joanne told me to quit my complaining and so I would suffer for God's grace instead of being a whiner.
And this is,
It wasn't her.
this is way off the text and not in the notes, but I think it's absolutely true. When we hear that somebody is going through difficulties, our first reaction is we've got to pray and get God to take these things away. Let's remove their suffering.
You know, I've never done that.
I mean, it would be,
I want to know the reason.
it's the sweet thing, the compassionate thing, because we don't want anybody to suffer anything. But if Paul had been spared any of those things, where would the gospel be?
Yeah, it's almost like
strength to get through it.
Strength, understanding.
everything he went through strengthened him, made him even more determined to
Now, we do read
Thorn in
that
his-
Paul did pray that whatever that mysterious thorn in his flesh was, that God would take it away. He prayed it 3 times, but the answer was always, my grace is sufficient for you. My grace is enough to get you through this. Cling to me. You'll be fine. Everything's fine. I'm here. I got you. Now, praying, and you can apply this to, just suffering from physical pain and from health issues. Now, what if we started praying not that people automatically got well or healed from everything, but what if we prayed that they really learned something, that they were drawn closer to God, that they had a better understanding of eternity because of the awful, horrible mess that they're going through. I know I've told this story before, but in my first ministry, the church secretary's name was Leanna. And before I got there, she had been diagnosed with breast cancer and had some treatments, and it was remission. And then after I'd been there for a little while, it was back. And she went through all kinds of stuff. She had surgery, there was chemotherapy, there was radiation. And before all that, she was a really nice lady. She was very sweet. She was a lot of fun. She had parties and fed all kinds of people. But after she went through that, she was like a spiritual giant. She was praying and believing, and it was what she went through. Had she not gone through that awful stretch, she would never have become that incredible woman of faith and prayer.
What do they call that?
Refining fire.
Were you gonna say burnishing?
No, I was, but that's not what I mean. What do they, when they, high heat to purify, but what's that called?
That's refining silver.
Yeah, there's another word for it, but that's, yeah. Gosh, I read about it yesterday.
I do not know why Robert is not teaching this class. He's on it. He's got all kinds of stuff. He
I
just
don't
looked up
remember the
yesterday.
name of it. I know he's talking about, yeah, I ordered some borax to my wax it yesterday.
My,
I really think that's true,
says,
because I had stage 3 ovarian cancer, survived, but I came out a much better person. That person was not who I wanted to be. And it kind of was a blessing. I don't particularly understand, but it made me better. It made me think of all the good things in the world and try to make more.
I don't,
it's powerful.
I don't consider mine, whatever this is, to be a blessing. I've been in constant pain for 13 years. And up until I got back close to Jesus, I would have killed myself if somebody had handed me a knife. It's that bad. It's called the suicide disease. Thought has not been there since, and most days I have a smile on my face, regardless of how bad I hurt. And it's because just you cling to Jesus, and that will get you through it. It'll help to it.
Yeah, he helps us endure.
I wish I just knew what the reason was. It's been my prayer for the last 4 years. Why? What's your purpose, God?
Well, you're a blessing to us, that's for
I
sure.
can't seem to find.
You know?
Wait, you might get some disagreement.
I don't think so. Oh, well.
No. My first,
This whole thing just makes total sense to me.
after James moved here, his first Bible study that I went to was the book of James. And it was right after my husband had died. And everything was new. And lots of questions, why? And he taught James, and James 1:2-4, consider it pure joy.
Brothers, when you face trials of many kinds.
You endure trials of many kinds. For
The testing of your faith produces
perseverance.
endurance, perseverance.
I used to know it.
Yeah.
Where'd that come from?
Testing of your faith.
First James 1,
perseverance.
sorry, James, chapter 1.
Yeah, perseverance finish its work, so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything.
Isn't it interesting that God makes us mature and complete by taking things out of us? Or off of us?
Yeah.
Well, that's what finding the process, that's what purification is getting rid of all the garbage.
That's right.
Pruned.
Scrape the dross off the top and cross it out.
The NAS in verse 22 is just kind of minimizes all of that. You don't think of all that. This is through many tribulations. We must enter the kingdom of God.
Phlipsis is the word. And it can be tribulation, oppression, affliction, distress, dire straits. Pick a bad thing, it fits.
James 1:2-4.
2
It's in Acts, and then there's another book. That it brings. That is a good one.
One other little note about the cities where Paul is, about Lystra. One of Paul's later companions is from the town of Lystra. It's believed that Timothy either heard Paul preach on this missionary journey, or that his grandmother and mother, Lois and Eunice, heard him and then raised Timothy up to be a believer. Timothy is the son of a Greek father, because he has a Greek name, Timotheus, and a Jewish mother. And as you know, Timothy was considered Paul's son in the faith. He served as a representative for Paul in many churches. He later became a pastor in the city of Ephesus. And he's with Paul all over the place when he writes 2 Corinthians, Philippians, Colossians, 1 Thessalonians, 2 Thessalonians, Philemon. These are with him. So if I was going to write the story for, the movie script, I'd probably have this man who's lame from birth in Lystra somehow be Timothy's father. That was just like, make a really great story.
Director's cut.
Oh, yes. There's zero proof of that, but that would be, that'd be awesome. So we'll come back around to Timothy again. From Antioch, verse 20 something 6. From Italia, they sailed back to Antioch, where they had been committed to the grace of God for the work they had now completed. On arriving there, they gathered the church together and reported all that God had done through them and how he had opened a door of faith for the Gentiles, and they stayed there a long time with the disciples. So I'm going to pass around a couple of handouts. Feel free to take one or two if you're collecting for a friend. So you do have a version of this already, but I felt like maybe you needed a worksheet.
Homework.
Yeah.
Next week, because I didn't bring back my maps, and apparently I should have. I left them home.
That's really okay. Actually, we're just gonna do it right here in class together. Instead of making you bring it back, so. So in Acts chapter 14, we see the entire first missionary journey of Paul. They got him ready for it in 13, and he executed all of it in chapter 14. So as soon as all those papers get around, we're going to use our pencils and pens or markers or crayons or whatever we have, and we're gonna track his entire journey on the map. There are some, does anybody need something to write with?
Sure.
Well, where did the rest of them go?
Even.
You're holding up the line, Steve.
In this first missionary journey, depending on how he needs to, depending on how you figure the miles, Paul and Barnabas traveled something like at least 800, and most people feel like it's more like 1,000 miles. No cars, no buses, no trains, feet and boat. They traveled 1,000 miles, and it probably took them something like a year and a half or maybe two for them to complete that journey. So
Not like
you've got your list here. This is everywhere they went in order. And you've got your map here. So let's trace. Get your markers ready. And where are we going to start?
the Syria.
Which is the one over on the right-hand side of the page. So you can put a little circle or something around that if your pen will work on this copied paper. And then you're going to draw. Yeah.
I circled it on a home base, so neither. Well, their sins won't even work.
Yeah, the ballpoint pens don't seem to translate to this text very well. So right beside Antioch on the coast, right underneath the H, that's where Seleucia is. So you can draw from Antioch to Seleucia, and then they go to Salamis by water. So they they sail there.
Start fading. Sure.
Oh, there we go. Then from Salamis, they travel across the island. They don't have a lot of success finding anything until they get over to Paphos, where they meet Sergius Paulus, and Paul put the smack down on Elymas the sorcerer. They sail from Paphos up to Perga. Carol, try that. And from Perga, they go up through, see, Pamphylia is a region. It's not really one place, it is just a region. So they go from Perga over up to Pisidian Antioch, which is straight north. And from Pisidian Antioch, they go to Iconium. From Iconium, they go to Lystra. And from Lystra, they go to Derbe. That is the furthest extent of the trip. And then however you want to do it, they go back from Derbe to Lystra, from Lystra to Iconium, from Iconium to Pisidian Antioch. From Pisidian Antioch, they go to Perga, then a little hop over to Atalia, which is also a city on the coast, before they sail back to the first Antioch. If you would like to borrow this pen, it did a really great job. Anyone?
I'm good.
You're lost?
Yes.
Okay. Where are you lost? How far did you get?
I need to start over.
Okay, so we're gonna start. We're gonna start in this Antioch over here. And we're gonna make one little jag over to the coastline before we draw a line to Salamis.
Oh, so Silencia isn't on here.
Seleucia is not on the map. No, it is not. It is the one thing that's missing from the map. But it is right there below the H in Antioch on the coast. It's a port city. Okay, we sail over to Salamis. And then we hike all the way across the island to get to Paphos. We're there for a while. Big exciting things happen. Then we sail up to Perga, which is on the bottom of Asia Minor. They're very much the first time, but so from Perga they go up to this Antioch, Pisidian Antioch, before they go to Iconium and then Lystra and then Derbe. And then they bounce back to all those same places again, back to Perga. And then from Perga, they get on the boat at Atalia, and the duo sails back to Antioch, where they give the big report to everybody about what they've done.
I think I would have got traps.
I'll be around to check your work later. 1,000 miles on foot, probably exclusively, except for obviously when they're in a boat. And it was a painful trip personally, but it was a very successful trip as well. The gospel was proclaimed, evangelizo, and lives were changed. And so after they've been everywhere that God had led them to go, they go back to Antioch where they give a report on their experiences, and they're going to stay in Antioch of Syria for some time. It does say at the top of this travelogue, this sheet, that it's probably somewhere between 18 months and 24 months. Nobody knows exactly for sure, but most people feel like it's somewhere around AD 46, AD 47, up through AD 48 or 49. So about 18 months, 2 years to do all that traveling. 500 miles a year. And that brings us to the end of chapter 14. Deep thoughts, probing questions.
They didn't even have a pit bit.
Oh, they got their steps in, that's for sure.
Did they have sailboats? Cause
Yeah.
there's a lot of rowing done. Oh. Was it just like me? It's just a matter of whether you can afford a sail or you have to paddle.
There are boats during that time that would have had sails and oars or paddles. It kind of just depended on who owned the boat and where they were going, what they were doing. You know, the big cargo ships would have been, you know, they're full of grain from one place to another. Those are gonna be, you know, many people cranking those out with a sail to help. I don't know how big Paul's boat was.
We have the answer.
Bigger than a canoe, smaller than the Queen Mary.
Verse 28, is it? And they stayed there a long time with the disciples. But that long hits me like. Yeah, thank you for time. We don't have to go out again. So I wonder how long is.
It is a little while. We will, because Paul is gonna make another journey. Actually, he's gonna make at least two more and potentially a third journey as well before we get to the end of Acts. So we'll do this again with, you know, the second missionary journey when we're ready for that.
So yours says a long time.
Yes.
Mine says, and I had no idea which direction to go. It said no little. And I didn't know if that meant it was short. Or if they stayed there a short time or a long time. So I'm glad you brought that up.
So at this point, this region is
What's it, no little part?
all Jewish because there's no Islam yet.
There is no Islam. Most of them are following the gods of Rome and Athens. They're either, you know, worshiping Jupiter or Zeus. Or I suppose it's possible that some of them are still following the gods that may have come from Syria. But by this time, Alexander the Great has been through and made everybody as Greek as he possibly could. So the majority are going to probably be Greek worshipers. All right, well, I'm going to shut this Hummer down here. We will pick up next time with Acts chapter 15. If you want to read ahead, feel free to make a comment. Let us know that you're there. If you've got a question, don't feel embarrassed to send an email to james.sayers@roychristian.org or just stop by the office if you're in the area. Especially you, Aunt Nancy. We'll talk to you later. Bye.